Will the Celtics turn down a gift from a former finals rival? Daniel Gafford. Imagine you, Celtics fan, seeing once again the board having the chance to improve the squad and perhaps throwing this gift away. Speak up, Green Nation. If you've also gotten tired of seeing opportunities pass by, trade rumors disappear, and then another team lift the trophy, this video is for you. Today, we will take a calm look at this gift from former finals rival Daniel Gafford and understand, does it make sense or is it a trap? Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to show you in practice whether the Celtics have to say yes or no to this trade without fanaticism, just the truth that fans need to hear. Before we get into the numbers and Gafford's fit, quickly, if you're a Celtics through and through, you already do the following by now. Subscribe to the channel because here we tell the truth that fans don't hear in traditional media. Leave a like because this shows YouTube that there are active Green fans and it delivers this content to more people. And activate the bell so you don't miss any videos because when there's a change, hot rumor, or post-game analysis, you'll be the first to know. Do that now, and let's go to the video, because later on, I'm going to give a very unpopular opinion about this possible trade for Gafford that you might not agree with, but you need to hear it. Celtics fan, let me talk to you calmly here. You know that feeling when you look at another NBA franchise and think, if this was happening in Boston, I would freak out. That's exactly what happens when we look at what's happening in Dallas. The Mavericks found themselves suddenly without Nico Harrison, the executive who signed one of the most questionable negotiations in recent times. Em menos de ano, ele topou movimento que mudou totalmente a identidade da franquia. Abriu mão de Luka Doncic, o rosto da equipe, em uma troca construída em torno de Anthony Davis, e do que parecia, no papel, pacote de retorno competitivo. Today, looking at the scenario, the picture is different. Harrison has already left. The team is lost. Luka's return may not last long there. And the feeling is that all-in was done at the wrong table. And why does this matter to us Celtics fans? Because in the midst of this chaotic scenario in Dallas, one name ends up emerging in behind-the-scenes conversations as a possible target for other teams. Daniel Gafford. And then, inevitably, the question that moves the head of any Green fan arises. Should the Celtics go after this guy? I want to take you through this reflection calmly, as if we were watching a game together, analyzing play-by-play. The chaos in Dallas. A warning for any franchise. Let's start with context. The Mavericks are 4-12, sitting in 13th place in the Western Conference out of the play-in conversation. It's not just a bad start. It's a start that forces the franchise to look in the mirror and ask itself, are we building something or just putting out fires season after season? The situation becomes even more delicate when we remember a very important detail. Dallas does not have complete control over its first-round picks between 2027 and 2030. When a franchise gives up so many draft picks, it sticks to the decisions it made in the present. If the plan doesn't work, there is no security in simply starting over with the draft. And that's where the exchange involving Luka and Davis weighs even more. What was supposed to be the movement that would take the franchise to another level became an anchor. To make matters worse, the main return from this trade may not last that long in Dallas. And faced with this uncertainty, conversations begin. Should we trade some of our most valuable players? Is it time to start over? Who can bring the most immediate return? In this scenario, Daniel Gafford appears prominently. Why is Daniel Gafford so talked about in the market? Reporter Mark Stein, who has been following the NBA behind the scenes for years, brought important information. If the Mavericks decide to give up some of their main players, Gafford would probably be the athlete with the biggest trade market, and it makes sense. He is a seventh-year center in the league, with characteristics that are highly valued today. Protects the rim well. He is efficient near the basket. Runs the court well. He's solid as a pick-and-roll finisher. Add to this a point that weighs heavily on any general manager. Movable contract. Gafford is guaranteed about $54.4 million over the next 3 years. Within the current context of the NBA, with huge contracts popping up everywhere, he is not on the impossible shelf. It is exactly this combination, useful player plus reasonable contract plus still good age, that makes his name circulate among franchises. And here comes the inevitable question. Would it make sense for the Boston Celtics to enter this race? the concern that existed in Boston, the pivot position. If we go back in time a little, before the start of the season, one of the biggest insecurities in Boston was precisely the pivot rotation. Porzingis, talented, spaces the court, protects the rim, but has a history of injuries. Horford, absurd leadership, tactical brain, but already in the final stretch of his career. It was not uncommon to see fans asking, what if Porzingis misses time with injury? What if Horford can't handle heavy drafting in the playoffs? Who will hold the bottle when the game gets tough? It was in this context of doubt that many analysts even looked at names like Daniel Gafford with interest. An athletic center capable of protecting the rim, completing aerials, and providing energy from the bottom of the rotation seemed to make sense. But, since then, one piece has changed this conversation a lot. Neemias Queta. Neemias Queta, the answer that came from within. If you follow games closely, you've probably felt this. When Queta enters the court, the team changes its tone. The 26-year-old Portuguese player began to establish himself as one of the best rim protectors in the league within his role. It is no exaggeration to say that within a specific cut, limited minutes, clear function, well-defined role, he became an extremely reliable piece. Vamos pensar no que ele entrega. Rim protection, contest, intimidate, change shots without having to block them all. Aerial bridge threat, excellent target in pick and roll, always becomes a passing option close to the basket. Vertical spacing. Even without the medium or long-distance shot, stretching upwards already forces the defense to react. Consistent blocks. Creates space for both the ball handler and himself to roll towards the rim. These details don't just appear in highlights. They are reflected in the fluidity of the attack, in the way the opposing defenders position themselves, in the playmaker's confidence in exploring more of the space. And there is another point that we cannot ignore, the contract. Queta is guaranteed for around $2.7 million next season. This, for a player who delivers real impact in the rotation, is a real treasure. In a league where every dollar counts, having someone who contributes well, costs little, and accepts his role is more valuable than many people realize. Unnecessary redundancy. Why does it weigh so much? Let's be very direct here from fan to fan. If the Celtics already have a young, cheap, efficient center who delivers good defense, good presence at the rim, and fits well alongside the stars, does it make sense to invest heavily in another player with similar characteristics, but with a much higher contract? When we think about the possibility of a trade for Gafford, the question isn't just whether he's good. He's good. This is not up for discussion. The question is it necessary, or would it become an expensive redundancy? Gafford is on the books for about $14.4 million for the 2025-26 season. Its extension takes effect next year, increasing the value to around $18.1 million and reaching close to $19 million in 2028-29. In other words, we would be exchanging a young, cheap center already integrated into the system, Queta, for another who, despite his qualities, would take up considerable financial space and would put extra pressure on the salary bill. And this brings us to another crucial point, the real cost of a reinforcement. Who would pay the bill? In theory, it's easy to say, it would be great to have Gafford in the squad. Imagine the rotation of bigs. But NBA cap is not a video game. For a contract to enter, another's must leave. In practice, for a trade for Gafford to make financial sense, the Celtics would most likely have to, involving someone like Sam Hauser, who today plays a fundamental role opening the court with his three-point shot, or use an expiring contract of average value, like the scenario created hypothetically with Anthony Simons, converting an expiration date into a longer-term commitment. And then the question we need to ask is, would you exchange the security of a cohesive squad with well-distributed roles for another pivot with a heavy contract, which does not solve a central need in the squad, but reinforces a sector that is already well served? When we look at it from this angle, the idea starts to lose strength. What do Celtics fans really want right now? If we could sum it up, I would say it like this. Celtics fans today are not desperate for another center. What the fans want, in general, is that the current squad is enhanced. May the stars be protected physically and emotionally, that the team maintains depth on the wings and perimeter, and that the adjustments are surgical, not movements that change the team's identity unnecessarily. Trading for Gafford would solve a problem that is not so big today. Before the season started, the fear of center rotation was real. But with the evolution of Queta and the way the coaching staff is managing minutes and roles, this insecurity has reduced. This makes the idea of reinforcing the bottle with another heavy contract sound more like a luxury than a necessity. Learning from other people's mistakes. The example of the Mavericks. This is where Dallas's situation speaks directly to Boston. The Mavericks made an aggressive move, bet big, gave up flexibility for the future, and now they look around and realize that they have bad campaign, few draft resources, and past decisions hampering the present. You, as a Celtics fan, don't want to see the franchise repeating this script. Boston today is one of the best structured teams in the league. It has stars at their peak, coherent supporting cast, direction that shows patience and strategy, and a nucleus that already knows each other, has suffered together, has already hit the goalpost, and is more mature. Placing an extra heavy contract on the sheet by someone who does not resolve an emergency is the type of move that, in the medium term, begins to take a toll. It is not a decision that destroys the franchise, far from it, but it is the typical step that could limit future maneuvers. And in such a dynamic league, the ability to adjust the roster season after season is just as important as having great players. Why the Gafford talk made more sense then than now. It's important to recognize one thing. The idea of acquiring Daniel Gafford made more sense at another time, when Queta hadn't yet shown everything it could deliver, when there was a real fear of the bottle being exposed if one of the starters got hurt. The scenario was different. In that context, bringing in an athletic center with good defensive presence and experience could be seen as a kind of luxury insurance, a way to sleep more peacefully thinking about the playoffs, a preventive reinforcement. But the NBA is dynamic. Players grow, contexts change, perceptions adjust. Today, with what Queta has been playing, with the way he has fit into the team's identity, with the value for money he represents, the equation has changed. What once seemed like a necessity now seems like an excess. What would I do in the Celtics front office's place? Speaking directly, as if you had asked me this live on the channel, if I were in Brad Stevens' shoes, I wouldn't get into a serious fight for Daniel Gafford right now. Not because he's a bad player, far from it. Not because he couldn't help. He could in many scenarios, but because the pivot position today is handled competently. Queta offers an in-house, cheap, and growing solution. Any relevant negotiation for Gafford would require changing pieces that currently fit very well, like Hauser, or making financial commitments that take away the franchise's flexibility. The focus of the adjustments should be on maintaining versatility on the wings, offensive creation on the perimeter, and the health and rest of the main stars. In summary, the Gafford talk made a lot more sense last summer than it does now. And you, Celtics fan, what do you prefer? I wanted to bring all of this in detail precisely so that you don't get stuck just with the name or the noise that is created around an exchange rumor. When talking about reinforcement, it's natural to get excited. The idea of another good player always seems positive, but the NBA, especially at the level the Celtics are at today, is made up of very fine choices. Not every good player is the right player. Not every reinforcement is, in fact, an upgrade. Not every opportunity is worth the cost. So I throw the reflection back at you. Would you trade stability, chemistry, and flexibility for yet another expensive center? Would you give up important parts of the current squad to reinforce a position that, at the moment, is not the most needy? Are you more concerned about collecting names or maintaining a structure that has everything you need to fight at the top for several years? In my view, the best gift the Celtics can receive right now doesn't come from a former finals rival. It comes from the franchise's own ability to maintain serenity, value what it has already built, believe in internal growth, and only make the moves that really make sense on the entire board, and not just in a rumor headline. If Dallas lives the consequences of hasty decisions, Boston has the chance to do exactly the opposite. Be patient, intelligent, and selective. And if this is the path, the Green fan has every right to believe that the next big step will not be a costly mistake, but rather a firm movement towards the title that the entire fan base is waiting for. So that's it, Celtics fan. While there are teams out there stalling on a poorly planned trade, sinking into a heavy contract, and losing control of their own future, Boston is faced with a very clear choice. Or follow the path of despair, hunting for names just to make headlines. Or Count continues doing what brought this cast here: calm, conviction, and intelligence. You've seen what happens when a franchise hands over the steering wheel to Rush. Dallas is a blatant example of this. Now think with me. Does it make any sense to repeat the same story precisely at a time when the Celtics have one of the strongest, deepest, and most prepared squads in the league? If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this: not every gift is worth opening. Sometimes the true gift is protecting what you've already built. And if you want to continue diving into this type of analysis, understanding every movement, every rumor, every adjustment by the Celtics calmly, without exaggeration, but with the passion that the shirt deserves, I left something special for you. Go now to the Celtics Analyses playlist, which is in the pinned comment. There, I only separated the videos in which we do exactly that here: dissects possible exchanges, analyzes the cast piece by piece, projects the impact of each decision on the dream of the title. Click on the playlist in the pinned comment, marathon the videos, and continue with me on this journey. If your heart is green, that space was made for you.